Here to respond, Senator Lindsey Graham, fresh off of a meeting with President Trump at the White House. Senator, good evening to you.
Good. That was clear as mud. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what do you make of that? What's your reaction to that discussion with Senator Warner about where this whole thing's going?
I've seen no evidence of collusion. I'm on the Judiciary Committee. Burr says he hasn't seen any. We'll see. Mueller will give us a report, hopefully in my lifetime. But this idea of just destroying President Trump and his family is not going to play well with the American people. And when Mueller issues his report, I don't think he's going to find any collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. I can tell you this, President Trump has a hard time colluding with his own government, so I don't think he colluded with the Russians.
Last night I talked to Joe DeGeneva, the attorney, and he said that he thought all 81 people who received those subpoenas should all refuse to show up. What do you think about? He said, that would be the biggest, boldest statement they could make. What do you think about that?
I just think the House is off the rails, and they're going to spend all their time trying to tear Trump down instead of build up the country. And President Trump is going to challenge them to work with him on immigration reform, on infrastructure that would help the American people. And if they keep playing this game of trying to destroy him and his family and refusing to work with the president to try to improve the lives of American families, Trump's going to win going away in 2020.
You did an interview with the New York Times, and the Daily Podcast, raised the question, what happened to Lindsey Graham? And when I listened to you talk about the president that way and, what you think he wants to accomplish, this is a long piece that drills down on the things that you said about the president in the past, kook, crazy, all of that. So, in a sentence or two, what did happen to Lindsey Graham? What changed your mind so dramatically about the president?
He beat me. He's president of the United States. I want him to be successful. I wanted Obama to be successful. I wanted Bush to be successful. The people in South Carolina want me to work with the president when it makes sense. I like what he's doing. He's rebuilding the military. He cut our taxes. He destroyed the caliphate. He got out of the Iran nuclear deal. He's got Rocket Man at the table. He's deregulating the country. He put Gorsuch and Kavanaugh on the bench. From my point of view, he's exceeded every expectation I had. I unashamedly want him to be successful. When I disagree with him, I'll tell him so, but nothing's happened to me. The only time you can be seen as a good Republican by the liberal side of the equation is when you attack a Republican. I had my shot at President Trump. The American people chose him. I want him to be successful. I'm all in. To the extent that I can help this president, I will.
So, you do disagree on things from time to time.
Sure.
He came out with a statement basically saying 100% agree that we need to leave some forces in Syria.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that you were persuasive on that.
Well, I think he took sound military advice. He's right to want to reduce our commitment. He's right to have other people do more of the fighting and pay more of the bills. But by having a small footprint behind of Americans, we'll get more Europeans. ISIS won't come back. Turkey and the Kurds won't go to war with each other, and Iran and Russia won't benefit from a hasty withdrawal. I think this was a smart decision, and President Trump did something Obama would never do. Listen to people and adjust his strategy. If Obama had listened to people in Iraq, there would be no ISIS.
You have a hearing.
I want to applaud the president.
All right. You have a hearing on the border coming up tomorrow on the Judiciary Committee. Thoughts on what you learned there? I
was blown away. So compared to last year, the number of families apprehended at the border has gone up 335%. The number of unaccompanied minors in our custody has gone up by 54%. The average cost of housing an unaccompanied minor for the American taxpayer is $375 a day. We're on track to spend $1.6 billion of housing unaccompanied minors in U.S. custody. If this is not a crisis, what the hell would be? We're being flooded. The numbers are just through the roof.
Well,
and
let me
our
ask you this. There's some, just looking through Twitter just moments ago, there's some complaints about the fact that Senator McConnell took up a vote on this and allowed Republicans, which he knew were going to vote against the president on this. Do you disagree with taking that vote in the Senate when there have been so many times when there was never a vote taken in the Senate?
It's a privileged motion. I don't think he can stop it. But here's what the president and I talked about for an hour and a half today, that he's disappointed that he's not able to convince Republicans that this is an emergency. Again, I've been dealing with this issue for a decade. If families get to America, they're released within 20 days. If an unaccompanied minor makes it into our custody, only 2% are returned to the country where they came from. We're sending a signal to all over Central America. If you can make it to America, you're going to stay. We're being overwhelmed. We're on track to have 650,000 illegal immigrants apprehended in 2019. It is a crisis. The legal authority the president is using has been used 50 times. He has the statutory authority given to him by Congress to take money from the military construction budget and apply it to an emergency situation. He's on sound legal footing. I support what he's doing, and I hope the Republican Party will stand behind him.
All right. Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you, sir. Always good to see you.
All right, look at this cover right out now from New York Magazine titled, "When Did Everyone Become a Socialist?" Now, we all know socialism doesn't work. Now, give me a minute to explain. You know, the promise is, it'll take away all your fears. Everything's going to be free. It really means government takeover of entire industries. Here's one example. Healthcare, the takeover of the healthcare industry under socialism. Kamala Harris, others, Gillibrand, you will not be allowed to own your own private healthcare plan. They've said so. By the way, how much you want to bet Democrats exempt themselves and they get to keep their plans? And it's not an exaggeration. The plan is being pushed by Bernie Sanders. Kamala Harris literally eliminates all private health insurance. See, with socialism, everyone is promised all your worries, anxieties in life are taken away and everything is free, which they never keep that promise. Just think of keep your doctor, keep your plan and pay less. But you do give up two big things, freedom and liberty in the name of false security. One of the Democrats pushing this is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. And one of my next guests is calling out the Congresswoman and her Green New Deal. Patrick Moore, he's the former president of Greenpeace Canada, wrote this on Twitter this weekend. Ice. Pompous little twit. You don't have a plan to grow food for 8 billion people without fossil fuels or get food into cities. What, horses? If fossil fuels were banned, every tree in the world would be cut down for fuel and cooking and eating. It would bring about mass death. Patrick Moore joins us now to explain, and he's joining us with chief meteorologist for weatherbell.com, and that is Joe B0RDER. All right, you know, they're kind of going after your credentials at Greenpeace, which I think has had a pretty stellar reputation over the years, in spite of my maybe personal disagreements. I'm an all-of-the-above guy and believe we should be good stewards of God's gifts. Okay, so that would mean all the above. Why did you say that on Twitter?
Well, Sean, she's talking about climate change, of course, and saying that we have to eliminate fossil fuels, all fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, in 10 years. This would be basically a suicide pact. Over 80% of the U.S. and the world's energy comes from fossil fuels. And the only reason for banning them is the so-called climate apocalypse or climate catastrophe. I see AOC recruiting young teachers and whole classes of young children against the apocalypse, they're saying. They're telling these children that there's going to be an apocalypse in 10 years if they don't save the climate. I think this is child abuse myself. The whole climate change movement has now reverted to using kids as a front for not only climate change and ending the use of fossil fuels, but the whole ball of wax about socialism. I think that's really what they're trying to sell.
Patrick, it's interesting you say that. There was a really cute girl on 60 Minutes last night that's suing the federal government. Apparently this lawsuit's been going on for 4 years. And as I listen, you know, clearly she believes everything. And I agree in the sense that it's very apocalyptic. Joe B0RDER, one thing I love about you is you can tell me what was the big storm in 1903 and where it happened and why it happened and what the conditions were that caused it to happen and compare it to today. And you've been saying that almost the same thing as Patrick Moore.
Well, yeah, I'd say the same thing. 1903, by the way, Atlantic City got hit by a hurricane from the southeast in September. Known. So I'm glad you brought up those.
Show off.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
go ahead.
You know, when I saw the new Green Deal, Sean, I thought it was a Saturday Night Live skit, you know, drunk uncles spouting off. We're going to build railroads across the ocean. Let's build one to the moon. We could put a restaurant up there. Great food, but no atmosphere. It'd be a vegan restaurant, though. The whole thing is meant to get you to try to fight against an extreme position while there's incremental creeping of this. And Dr. B0RDER just described it. What they're doing to kids. They're indoctrinating kids. Where would those kids be if we did not have the fossil fuel era? The true hockey sticks of the fossil fuel era are life expectancy, the amount of people on the planet, and personal GDP. They're all skyrocketing. It's almost like these people are ungrateful for what got them here.
You know, you think about it. Eliminate cows, cars as we know them, airplanes, Patrick. You know, how are we going to get to Europe? Are we going to take a sailboat? Are we going to take a high-speed train?
No, a train,
Are we going to build it above or below the water? You know, so my question, Patrick, to you is, isn't natural gas one of the cleaner burning gases out there? Aren't there ways we can improve the environment simultaneously while also using the lifeblood of every economy that feeds everybody, as you rightly point out?
Well, Sean, we've actually improved the cleanliness of all the fossil fuels. Coal, oil, the vehicle emissions today are less than 90%, you know, have been improved by more than 90% from what they were decades ago. And, you know, we could use more nuclear energy for producing electricity. That's true, and hydroelectric. But funny, they're against both of those, too, which are the only two really reliable, cost-effective technologies that could replace fossil fuels. And, you know, we could put nuclear reactors in the big ships, just like the Russians' whole icebreaker fleet and nuclear navies are powered with nuclear. We could do that. So there are some places where we could reduce fossil fuel. But when it comes to transportation and also agriculture, food, and moving people and goods around, if you stop moving the food into the cities, people in the cities will starve. They can't grow their food in Manhattan, enough for all those people in the high rises.
Not enough tomato pots, I agree, or enough lamb. I'm going to give the last word to Joe B0RDER. We only have about 15 seconds, Joe. You get to close this out.
If you take a look at the entire history of the planet, the 10 billion years, however far you want to go back, this would be the first time that man is controlling the climate. I tend to doubt that that is the case.
All right, thank you both. It's important everybody hear the other side here, even from Greenpeace. All right.